Magic Tree House Number 8, Midnight on the Moon by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 6, High Jump. Who is that? Said Jack. I don't know, said Annie, but we'll soon find out. She started waving. No, said Jack. He grabbed her arm. Let's go back to the base before he gets here. Why? Said Annie. We don't know who he is, said Jack. We don't know if he's friendly or mean or what. But we can go back, said Annie. We haven't found the 4th AM thing yet. We won't be able to go home. It doesn't matter. We can lock the door at the moon base until he goes away, said Jack. Then we can get new air tanks. Jack hurried to the moon buggy. Come on, he jumped up into the driver's seat. Annie gave a little wave at the dot in the sky. Then he climbed into the moon buggy. The buggy took off. Careful, said Annie. They bumped over the rock as Jack turned the buggy around. Then they zoomed towards the pass. Jack steered around the craters and rocks. More than once the buggy nearly tipped over. Whoa, slow down, said Annie. They were almost at the mountain pass. Suddenly, a cloud of dust flew up in front of them. The ground trembled. Watch it, cried Annie. Jack couldn't see a thing. He stepped on the brake. The buggy jerked to stop. The dust settled. The giant rock had fallen into the narrow pass. It was stuck in between two walls of rock. They were trapped. Jack quickly found a picture of giant rock in the moon book. He read aloud. Rocks of all sizes crash into the moon from outer space. The rocks are called meteorites. We're lucky that meteorite didn't land on us, said Jack. Yeah, and I guess it's too big to be the AM thing, said Annie. She had climbed out of the moon buggy as was standing by the meteorite. It was more than twice as tall as she was. Jack looked at the black sky. The flying thing was nowhere in sight yet. We'll have to jump over it, said Annie. Annie said, Jump? I don't think so, said Jack. It's too high. I'm going to try anyway, said Annie. Wait, let's think fast, said Jack. But Annie was already backing up. 1, 2, 3, go, she shouted. Took giant limping steps towards the meteorite. When Annie got close to the rock, she pushed off the ground. Then she flew through the space and disappeared behind the meteorite. Annie, Jack called. There was no answer. Oh, brother, Jack said. He backed up and took off towards the rock. He jumped as high as he could. Then he was flying through the space. Jack hit the ground and fell face down into the dust. Jack tried to stand, but his shoe was too bulky. He tried to roll over, but his shoe made even that impossible. Oh no, he groaned, not again. Are you here? Said Annie. Did you make it? Yes. Jack was relieved to hear her voice, but he couldn't turn his head to see her. He could only hear a voice over the radio. Can you help me up? He asked. Nope, said Annie. Why not? I fell down too, she said. Oh, brother, Jack sighed. Now we're really in trouble. He tried to stand again, but failed. Can you see anything? He asked. Just the sky, said Annie. Wow, is it weird? I'm worried about our air tanks, said Jack. I feel like it's been 2 hours. Jack, said Annie. And what about that moon man? Said Jack. Where did he go? Jack, whispered Annie. What? He's here, she said. The moon man is here. What? He's standing above me. Chapter 7. The Moon Man. Jack's heart nearly stopped. He could hear Annie talking. Hi, she said. We came in peace. There was silence. Then Jack heard Annie say, Thank you. I have to help my brother up now. A moment later, Annie rolled Jack onto his back. She grabbed his hand and pulled him up. Thanks, said Jack. Once he was standing, the moon man was a few feet away. His face was hidden by a metal visor. He looked like a spaceman, a huge spaceman, with a giant tank of his back. It was as big as the refrigerator. That's a jetpack, said Jack. I've seen pictures of future astronauts flying with those things. It's like a mini spaceship, right? The moon man didn't answer. I don't think he can hear us, said Annie. He's not hooked up to our radio. All right, said Jack. I'll write him a message. Good idea. Jack pulled out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, We are Jack and Annie. We came in peace from America. Who are you? Jack handed the notebook and pencil to the moon man. They looked tiny in his big hands. The moon man looked down at the message. They looked at the tiny pencil. Then he turned the notebook over. Jack and Annie watched as the moon man put the pencil to the paper. He was writing something very carefully. Finally, he gave the notebook back to Jack. Jack and Annie stared at the marks. Stars, said Annie. He drew stars. Yeah, maybe it's a space map, said Jack. Space map, said Annie. Hey, Jack, map starts with M. Oh, wow, said Jack. This must be the fourth M thing. Let's ask him what his map means, said Annie. She turned round. We'll never know now, she said. Why? Jack looked up from the map. That's why, she pointed. The moon was flying over the mountains. Thanks, Annie cried. Chapter 8. One star to another. Who was that guy? Said Jack. What does his map mean? I don't know, said Annie. But let's see if it works. Jack took a deep breath. Yeah, we'd better hurry back. I think I'm running out of air. It feels harder to breathe. For me too, said Annie. Go slow, don't breathe so much, said Jack. He and Annie took long floating steps towards the moon base. Jack held his breath as if he were underwater. By the time they got to the white dome, he was ready to burst, and he pushed the button beside the huge door. It slid open. They hurried into the airlock. The door closed behind them, and the door to the hallway opened. Jack opened the visor of his helmet. He took a long deep breath and let it out. Let's get out of these chutes, said Annie. Good idea. Jack was starting to free his arms and legs. As they moved clumsily into the spacesuit storeroom, Jack felt heavy again. He and Annie unlocked each other's helmet, gloves, and boots and pulled everything off. Then they stepped out of their bulky chutes. feels," Jack said. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. It was great to be free, even if he no longer felt as light as a feather. "Hurry, Peanut's waiting," said Annie. She led the way down the step to the bright landing chamber. "Yay," she said softly. Jack was relieved to see the treehouse still there. Soon they'd be heading home. He couldn't wait. Jack and Annie crawled through the treehouse window. "We're back, Peanut," said Annie. Squeak! Peanut ran to the letter M. "We miss you," said Annie. She patted the mouse head. "We met a moon man." "Sorry, Peanut, but you have to move," said Jack. "We have to put the map on the M." Annie gently lifted the mouse off the M. Jack tore the map out of the notebook. He placed it on M next to the mammoth bone, the mango, the moonstone. He signed. Then he sat back on his heels. "Hand me the Pennsylvania book," he said. They needed the Pennsylvania book to get back home. There was silence. Jack turned to look at Annie. "It's not working, Jack," she said. "The book's not here." What was the map the wrong thing? They looked around the treehouse. "It's definitely not here," said Annie. "Oh no!" Jack's heart sank. He picked up the star map and stared at it. Squeak, squeak! Peanut jumped out of Annie's arm and scrolled back to the letter M. "I've got an idea," he said. He reached into his pack and took out his pencil. "What are you doing?" said Annie. "You know how to draw a constellation," said Jack. You connect all the stars. What happens if we try that? He drew a line from one star to another. He kept drawing until all the stars were connected. "Let me see," said Annie. Jack held the paper out so they could both study it. "It looked like a mouse," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "Is there such a thing as a mouse constellation?" said Annie. "I don't think so," said Jack. Squeak! Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. She was standing on the M. "Oh, wow, Jack," Annie whispered. "I think I know what the fourth thing is." Jack grinned. "Me too," he said. "It's a mouse," they said together. Squeak, squeak. "Maybe the spell is Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse," said Annie. Jack touched each M thing in turn as they whispered, "Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse." "Let's say over and over so see what happens," said Annie. Together they chanted, "Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse. Moonstone, Mango, Mammoth Bone, Mouse." Suddenly a bright light filled the tree house. The light got brighter and brighter and brighter. The brightness was blinding, the wiring. The air spun with brightness. Then everything was clear. Peanut the mouse was gone. And Morgan's face stood before Jack and Annie. Chapter 9. Morgan. "Thank you," Morgan said softly. "You have freed me from the magician's spell." Jack just stared at her. "You a Peanut?" Annie said. Morgan nodded and smiled. "Really? You were with us all the time?" said Jack. "On our missions?" Morgan nodded again. "Why did we have to go on this mission? Find a mouse," said Jack. "If you were always with us." "To break the spell, we had to be on the moon," said Morgan. "You could have broken in the minute we arrived." "Oh, that's what you were trying to say," said Annie. "We didn't have to leave the moon base at all." Morgan nodded, smiling. But the Moon Man came along to help us, said Annie. He drew a constellation of a mouse. Is he a friend of yours? Morgan shrugged. Let's just say we had a little talk. He stopped by the moon base while you were out. The same way you had talked with the ninja master, right? Said Jack. And the monkey and the sorcerer? Morgan nodded. I always squeak to the ones who helped you. But how did they understand you? A mouse, said Jack. Morgan smiled again. Certain wise ones understand the language of little creatures, she said. I bet it was you who turned the page of the book, said Annie, to show us where to go next. Morgan nodded. But who turned you into a mouse? Said Annie. Morgan frowned. A certain person who likes to play tricks on me, she said. His name is Merlin. Merlin, said Jack, the greatest magician who ever lived. Morgan sniffed. He's not that great, she said. He doesn't even know I have two brave friends who helped me. Help me. Us? Said Annie shyly. Morgan nodded. And I thank you both with all my heart. You're welcome, said Jack and Annie. Morgan handed Annie the Pennsylvania book. Are you ready to go home now? She asked. Yes, said Jack and Annie. Annie pointed to a picture of Frog Creek Woods. I wish we could go there, she said. The tree has started to spin. It's spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still, but only for a moment. Chapter 10. Earth Life. The midnight wood woke up. The breeze rustled the leaves. An owl hooted. The sounds were soft but very alive. Jack opened his eyes. He pushed his glasses into place. He smiled. Morgan was still with them. He could see her in the moonlight. Her long white hair was shining. Morgan, can you and the treehouse stay here? Said Annie. In Frog Creek? No, I have lived again. I'm afraid, said Morgan. I've been gone from Camelot for a long time. She handed Jack his pack. He brushed his cheek. Her hand felt soft and cool. I feel the moon dust still on you, she said. Thank you, Jack, for your great love of knowledge. You're welcome, said Jack. Morgan tugged one of Annie's braid. And thank you, Annie, for your belief in the impossible. You're welcome, said Annie. Go home now, said Morgan. Jack smiled. Home with us, that bright, colorful world when everything was alive and always changing. Bye, Morgan, said Annie. She started out of the treehouse. Jack looked at Morgan. Will you come back soon? He said. Anything can happen, said Morgan. The universe is filled with wonders, isn't it, Jack? He smiled and nodded. Go now, Morgan said softly. Jack followed Annie down the rope ladder. He stepped onto the ground. The wind started to blow. The tree had started to shake. A loud roar filled Jack's ears. He squeezed his eyes shut. He covered his ears. Then everything was silent and still. Jack opened his eyes. The letter was gone. He looked through the leaves and branches of the giant oak tree. Where the treehouse had been was only moonlight now. Bye, Morgan, he said sadly. Bye, Peanuts, said Annie. Jack and Annie stayed at the top of the tree for a long moment. Ready? Said Annie. Jack nodded. They started for home. The midnight air felt cool and moist. It was filled with the soft sound of earth life. Jack and Annie left the Far-Creek Woods. They started down the street. Annie gazed up at the sky. The moon was really far away, isn't it? It did, thought Jack. It was. I wonder how the moon can be up there all the time, said Annie. What do you mean, said Jack. I mean, who helps him put on his spacesuit, said Annie. Who helps him get up and fall when he falls down? And who is he, said Jack. Who do you think he was, said Annie. He must be a scientist or an astronaut from Earth, said Jack. No, I think he's an alien, said Annie, from another galaxy. Jack scoffed. What makes you say that? I just feel it, said Annie. Wrong, said Jack. There's no proof that aliens exist. Maybe not now, said Annie, but don't forget we're in the future. Oh, brother, said Jack. They crossed the yard and climbed there. Jack climbed their back steps. Annie tiptoed inside the house. Jack followed her. Before he shut the door, he gazed up at the moon. Was Annie right? He wondered. Could the moon man have come from another galaxy? Morgan's word came back to him. The universe is filled with wonders, isn't it, Jack? Good night, Moon Man, Jack whispered. Then he closed the door. The end. Thank you for reading this book. Magic Tree House number 8, Midnight on the Moon by Mary Pope Osborne.